Recently, I get a lot of questions from you guys, but what about the 16-year cycle that I've been talking about basically since this specific moment? Like, we've been very clear right here on the channel that at this specific moment, I'm going all in with all my stable coins, all the money that I have on my bank back into Bitcoin. And in hindsight, guys, it was a very good decision because we got a nice rally in the Bitcoin price. Right now, we're losing momentum on that rally. So I also been very transparent that right here, I've been taking out quite a bit of my Bitcoin hodl position just to hedge it if we were to come down and test these lows again, because I don't want to go all in at the exact low and then just see all the profits return again. And I want to talk a bit about that in today's video, because we have been comparing the price action of Bitcoin, basically this whole cycle, a bigger 16-year cycle, which with what happened with the dot-com bubble in the regular financial markets, because the way Bitcoin behaves is actually very, very similar as how Bitcoin or how the price of the S&P 500 behaved in the dot-com bubble, but also how similar assets in the dot-com bubble, like for example Microsoft company, it looks so very similar than as to Bitcoin with these 4-year cycles. And I'm working right now on a piece of paper, guys, with very well written and detailed research on how to compare those two cycles. So I will really go into that in more depth very, very soon. Once that is ready, I just don't want to give half information, right? I just want to make a new video about that, really dive into these cycles on both things. But yeah, a lot of people ask me, okay, now that Bitcoin is seeing this pullback, is a 16-year cycle still possible? And my short answer is yes, guys, the 16-year cycle is still possible, because the 16-year cycle basically says that we are going to top with Bitcoin in this yellow zone right here, starting from let's say the first half of 2024, Bitcoin could top based on the 16-year cycle. And I would say, guys, that this is still a very likely scenario. That Bitcoin right now pulls back can mean a couple of things, like the scenarios can change a little bit. So we could get a shakeout in the shorter term time frame, which can ignite a very short bull market right here. I would prefer that scenario, definitely. But that would be really a scenario if we were to see a crisis. Something similar as we have seen in March 2020, where we have seen a crisis, the money printer went back on, and Bitcoin just went into this massive bull market. But also very important to note is that this bull market hasn't been that big of a bull market compared to 2017 if we look at the inflation as well, if we have a look at the money creation, which we are doing right here on the channel. So that is very important to note, guys. Maybe this felt like a full-blown bull market, but I would definitely argue that this one was a bigger bull market with more mania, with more hype than this bull market, although the prices in this bull market went higher. But you got to understand a little bit the investors' incentives, right? So what happened right here is that this bull market was really based on the anticipation on Bitcoin being digital money and so on. And this bull market was really a flight for liquidity into the fiat markets, because of this crisis right here, we have seen a massive increase in the amount of fiat money that has been created. The Federal Reserve asset balance sheet also crazy went up, guys. We can see it right here in the M2 supply. Like in the year here in February 2020, we just got a massive increase in the amount of circulating supply of dollars, which basically means that if you would have, let's say, 100,000 US dollars on your bank account, 1 year later, the purchasing power would maybe be like 70,000. So you would lose a significant amount of value just by holding US dollars. And I think that was definitely one of the catalysts for this bull market. And we need, for the coming bull market, we need another catalyst as well. And maybe that catalyst is going to be the Bitcoin ETF. However, I'm not that I'm not that bullish on it yet, because I think it can be more of a Zelda news event depending on when that ETF will be approved, right? But we all know right now that there is a approval of a Bitcoin ETF coming sooner or later. Like, we all know that already, right? So why is not everybody already then positioned to anticipate such a big news event? Right? Is it then suddenly that once the ETF is approved, that suddenly a lot of liquidity will enter the markets? I don't think so, because if institutions right now want to get exposure to Bitcoin, they can still like buy into MicroStrategy. I mean, MicroStrategy has all of their funds in Bitcoin, so there are already options. I think Coinbase is definitely having some institutional options as well, because MicroStrategy itself buys Bitcoin as an institution. They do that through Coinbase. So I just have a hard time, and maybe I'm wrong, I just have a hard time believe that suddenly once this ETF is approved, a lot of liquidity will just flow into Bitcoin. I think a lot of liquidity already flowed into Bitcoin because of the anticipation of this ETF. But like I said, guys, I really can be wrong on this one. This is just my view of the financial markets, right? So I think we definitely need a new catalyst, and that can be the ETF, that can be a new crisis, but I think the money printer needs to go back on, because let me show you another chart, guys. This is the S&P 500. And what you can see, I can change the color of this one so it's a little bit more visibility. Where can I do that? No, I can't see it. So guys, let's have a look. I want to show you this chart. This is the S&P 500, and below here we got the Federal Asset Balance Sheet, Federal Reserve Asset Balance Sheet, which basically means the amount of assets that the Federal Reserve is buying, which most of the times are stocks. And below we have the M2 money supply. And what we can see right here, guys, is that here, once we had this crisis and the M2 money supply went up, like the S&P 500 went up too. And it looks like we are in a bull market right here, and we surpassed the previous highs, which in US dollar terms we also do. We surpassed those previous highs. But if we have a look at how this looks with taking inflation into consideration, so if we take that newly created money into the equation, then we have never set new highs. So we are right now still at the highs which we have seen once before we had that crash in March, in 2020, beginning of 2020, right? As you can see, we are even trading lower than at the beginning of 2020 if you would take the inflation into consideration. And what we can see right now with the Federal Reserve, guys, is that the asset balance sheet right here is declining, right? I mean, they're not increasing their balance sheet. So there is not really newly money being injected into the economy. The Federal Reserve is not buying up stocks. So this is not really too bullish, right? Because if we would compare this, we can see clearly that once the balance sheet is increasing, once the money supply is increasing, the regular financial markets go up. And although I want to be bullish on both of them, regular financial markets and Bitcoin, I still think there needs to be somewhat of a catalyst for the Federal Reserve to start stimulating these markets. Otherwise, there is a not so big incentive for investors to invest. So right now, not much is happening, right? We do see that the liquidity is really dried up in the crypto markets. Liquidity is also dried up in the regular financial markets, and there is basically no newly created money. So that means that the value of money is actually increasing, because if money doesn't get injected into the economy, the value of the money is actually increasing. It's the value of the money that is decreasing once it is being continued to be generated and being injected into the economy. And just right now we're not seeing that. But I'm also going to say it's going to be it can happen next month, right? We can see a crisis or some excuse, climate crisis or whatever happens, and then suddenly we are seeing a big stimulus. But I think before we are going to see that stimulus, we first have to see a crash. And I think that most likely will happen on Bitcoin too. That will happen on the regular financial markets. But all in all, it's still we still could follow the path of a 16-year cycle, and we also could follow a path, guys, which will be actually less bullish for Bitcoin. But if we do something like this, we just go down right here, finally we break up, we get a little bit acceleration, maybe get to the previous all-time high, and top, maybe not too, maybe close to the previous all-time high. It also depends on the money creation, of course. Maybe it will be higher, that we top higher, but based on the newly created money, it might be the similar high as we have seen right here in terms of purchasing power. So the short answer on the question, is the 16-year cycle, could it still be in play? Yes, it could definitely still be in play. What do I think? I still think the 16-year cycle has a higher likelihood of playing out because everyone is aware of 4-year cycles, and this is the exact same thing that happened in the regular financial markets. So guys, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin in the next bull market wouldn't come too high, as we definitely see diminishing returns on every bull market, and I think the hype that we have seen on this bull market is really difficult to really get back. But that's also the way an adoption cycle works, because things are maturing, right? Bitcoin is maturing, and we can see the bounce right here, very strong, a little bit less strong, maybe a little bit less strong, and then I think after such a long uptrend, where we have really limited corrections. If you look at Bitcoin, we always have 1-year bear market. It really makes sense to get a more long-term correction on such an asset like Bitcoin, which has already been in such an uptrend. And also think about this, think about the US dollars, like if the US dollar needs to collapse, because of course Bitcoin can overtake the US dollars, right? But therefore, the US dollar needs to be insufficient, it needs to collapse. And for the US dollar to collapse, we really need massive inflation. And I don't see a scenario where the Federal Reserve would really, like in an instant, really crash the United States dollar and that Bitcoin could overtake as the world reserve currency. I don't think that process happens overnight. I would say it would make more sense that process takes time to mature. It takes time for Bitcoin to overtake the US dollar. And I just don't think that the Federal Reserve would be that stupid to just like inflate their own currency till a point that it's just going to collapse in a single day, maybe in the next couple of years, and that Bitcoin just overtakes. It's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but these guys are not stupid. Right? These guys are definitely not stupid. Their weapon is the United States dollar. So why would they let it crash? They would rather they would rather than stop printing money, increase the value of US dollars, and let all the other assets go into a bear market. That would definitely make more sense than to inflate their own currency to save the economy, but then actually break their own weapon. I think that process needs more time. It definitely takes more time. I do think that will happen in the end. The powers that are right now in place will definitely sooner or later collapse. This is what history tells us as well. But I just don't think it will happen overnight, and I don't think necessarily it will happen this year or next year. And that would be the only reason for me to see Bitcoin really going to crazy amount of levels. If we do see that black swan event happening. I think it is more realistic to say that, okay, we might going to see a crisis, we might going to get that last push in the regular financial markets and in Bitcoin, because we get the same incentive as we have seen right here. There will be a lot of money that is being created, that will be injected into the economy, and that will make the flight again for money going into risk-on assets, which will drive the price up of Bitcoin and the regular financial markets. But before that happens, which right now is not yet the case, the money to supply is going down, and the Federal Reserve asset balance sheet is also going down. So right now we're just basically not seeing that yet. And I really think that we need something like that in order to get that bull market back. You can always like manipulate a little bit, so maybe they can print some stable coins like we have seen in the past. And then maybe inject those stable coins, fake value into these markets and drive the price a little bit up. That is definitely possible. But to get a sustainable bull market like we have seen right here, or like we have seen in 2017, that there really is a buildup of liquidity entering the crypto markets. And I think we really need a change in the investors' mindset, but also a change in the monetary structure of that we are seeing right now. Because if the M2 supply just continue to decrease and the Federal Reserve is not going to really print money, there's not really newly money being created and being pushed in the economy, then where is the liquidity going to come from to push Bitcoin higher? Maybe that Bitcoin spot ETF can have some of an impact. I think for me it also really depends on whenever that thing is getting approved. So if it would get approved, for example, this year, I would be more bullish than if it would be approved next year, because next year we would already be more mature in the cycle, and a lot of people are already anticipating that. That's the same with the stock to flow model, guys. So the stock to flow model came, right, and we can see that people start to invest in Bitcoin because they all think Bitcoin is going to 100,000 US dollars. But the moment everyone is aware of that, so right here at this specific moment, the stock to flow model got published on Forbes News, one of the biggest news media outlets and really mainstream news. So it got published right here, which means that, yeah, everyone is already positioned in Bitcoin, anticipating that move. And that means that there are not really buyers left to have new liquidity, right? And right now I also kind of a little bit shocked, because if this was so bullish and the Bitcoin ETF will be approved very, very soon, and if it all would be so bullish, then why is the price, why is this not really priced in yet? Because we have bullish news, but the price actually goes down. We don't want to see the market going down on bullish news, right? That means that everyone already anticipated that news. So that is a little bit the thing that I'm worried about. But yeah, I do think something is going to change. I definitely think something is going to change. I don't think that we are going to like just go down from here. Definitely not, because we are still in this long structured uptrend. But I do think that we need somewhat of a crisis. We need some hard times. There needs to be an excuse to get the money printed back on from the Federal Reserve, to change the investors' mindset, to change the monetary structure, like we have seen how it worked right here. And then we can enter this bull market again. Or there has to be another catalyst, but I do think there has to be a catalyst before that happens. But yeah, guys, like I also said in all of my videos, I can be really wrong. I'm just looking at the data from my perspective and from my experience. I've been busy. I've been going into crypto right here. So this is the time that I've actually seen crypto happening. So this is all the experience that I have. And yeah, that might be an advantage, but that also might be a disadvantage, because I maybe compare everything too much together. I compare the next cycle too much with the previous cycle, and every cycle is different. So there are definitely some dangers into that with having some experience. But if I'm just looking at this, I would say yes. If from the next 6 to 12 months. For sure, it looks like Bitcoin is going to be trading at higher levels right here, but it also looks like we are going to get somewhat of a struggle, somewhat of a event happening before that actually can take place. But yeah, guys, I'm really curious what you think. This video already takes way too long. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. If you believe the 16-year cycle is going to play out, let me know in the comment section. If you want to stay connected with me and track this 60-year cycle, make sure to subscribe down below. And yeah, guys, I wish you all a beautiful day, and I hope to see every single one of you in the next video.